The massive ships cast shadows over the morning sky as they descended through Earth's atmosphere. Crixval watched from the command deck of his vessel, his 4 eyes studying the readings on his display. The planet below looked peaceful, with its blue oceans and white clouds. The humans had no idea what was coming. "Commander, we are receiving panic signals from the surface," his communications officer reported. "Their primitive radio networks are filled with fear broadcasts." Crixval's mandibles clicked in satisfaction. This was exactly what the galactic hegemony expected. Another weak species would bow before their superior technology. Earth would fall within days, just like the 17 worlds that came before it. "Begin the landing sequence," Crixval ordered. "Deploy ground forces to the major population centers. Remember, we want prisoners for the work camps." Far below on the surface, Lieutenant Colonel Jake Murphy was having his morning coffee when the sirens began. He set down his cup and walked to the window of his office at Fort Liberty. The dark shapes in the sky were unmistakable. After 30 years in the military, Murphy had seen enough war to recognize a threat when he saw one. "All units, this is Murphy," he spoke into his radio. "Code Red, we have incoming hostiles. Execute Protocol 7 immediately." Staff Sergeant Lisa Rodriguez was already moving before the order finished. She had been drilling her soldiers for this exact scenario for months. Not alien specifically, but enemy invasion. The response was the same regardless of who was attacking. "Third Squad, secure the armory," she barked. "Fifth Squad, establish perimeter defense. Everyone else, get those civilians to the bunkers." The first alien dropship landed in the center of town with a thunderous crash. Crixval watched through his scanner as the loading ramp lowered. His soldiers marched out in perfect formation, their energy weapons gleaming in the sunlight. The humans should be running in terror by now. Instead, Captain Ryan Walsh was on his radio coordinating with bases across the country. "Fort Campbell, this is Liberty Base. We have confirmed hostile landing. Requesting artillery support on Grid 77 Alpha." "Copy that, Liberty Base. Shells incoming in 90 seconds. Crixval stared at his display in confusion. These humans were not behaving like the other species the hegemony had conquered. Where was the panic? Where was the chaos? Instead, he was seeing organized military response. Private Danny Kim crouched behind a concrete barrier with his squad. They had been preparing for this moment since basic training. Not aliens, but invasion. The enemy's identity did not matter. The response was the same. "Rodriguez, you seeing this?" Kim whispered into his radio. "These things look like giant bugs." "Copy that, Kim. Bugs die just like everything else. Wait for my signal." The alien soldiers advanced through the streets, expecting to find cowering civilians. Instead, they found empty buildings and silent roads. The humans had vanished. Crixval's confusion grew as his ground forces reported the same thing from every landing site. The human population centers were empty, not destroyed, not filled with bodies, just empty. The humans had simply disappeared. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "we are detecting organized resistance. The humans appear to have evacuated their civilian population and are mounting coordinated defensive actions." "Impossible," Crixval replied. "Our intelligence reports show they are a divided species. They cannot possibly coordinate on this scale." At that moment, the first artillery shells began falling on the alien landing zones. Corporal Amy Foster watched through her binoculars as the explosions tore through the alien formations. The enemy soldiers scattered, their perfect formations breaking apart. "Targets are mobile," she reported, adjusting fire. The aliens had superior technology, but they had never faced an enemy that could adapt this quickly. Within hours, every major military installation on Earth was sharing tactical data about the invaders. Their weapons, their movements, their weaknesses. Major Alex Stone coordinated the defense from his underground command center. He had been preparing for this day his entire career. Every war game, every exercise, every drill had been leading to this moment. All units, this is Stone. We have confirmed that enemy armor is vulnerable to shape charges. Repeat, their vehicles can be destroyed with conventional explosives. Crixval received the first casualty reports with disbelief. His forces were taking losses, real losses, not from other advanced weapons, but from primitive explosive devices and projectile weapons. How is this possible? He demanded. These humans barely have space travel. Their weapons should be useless against our technology. Detective Maria Santos knew every tunnel and sewer line in her city. She had spent 20 years as a police officer learning the underground networks. Now she used that knowledge to move resistance fighters through the urban maze. Team Alpha, enemy patrol moving down 5th Street, she whispered into her radio. Team Beta, you have a clear path to the target. Sergeant Tony Mitchell and his team emerged from the storm drains behind the alien patrol. They fired their weapons in perfect coordination, then vanished back into the tunnels before the aliens could respond. Combat engineer Captain Ben Clark had spent weeks preparing the subway system for this moment. Every tunnel had been rigged with explosives. Every platform had been turned into a potential ambush site. Detonate charges on level 3, he ordered. Seal the northern tunnels. The explosions echoed through the underground, trapping the alien forces in a maze of concrete and steel. The humans were not just fighting back. They were controlling the battlefield. Nurse Jennifer Davis worked in the field hospital during the day, treating wounded soldiers and civilians. At night, she coordinated supply runs to the resistance fighters. Food, ammunition, medical supplies. Everything moved through networks that had been established within hours of the invasion. Delivery for Grid 7 is ready, she reported. Route is clear through the industrial district. School teacher Paul Johnson had organized the children into an intelligence network. They played games that looked innocent, but were actually sophisticated information-gathering operations. The aliens never suspected that the young humans were mapping their movements and reporting their positions. The metal bugs are moving toward the school, 8-year-old Tim reported. 20 of them with 2 of their big machines. Good job. Tim, go tell Miss Davis. She needs to know. Colonel Susan Wright studied the tactical displays in her command center. She had been a Marine for 25 years, fighting in conflicts around the world. This was just another war against a different enemy. The aliens are learning our tactics, she told her staff. We need to adapt faster than they do. Change all operational frequencies. Rotate patrol routes. Keep them guessing. By the end of the first day, Crixval's invasion force had captured none of their primary objectives. Instead of a quick conquest, they faced organized resistance across the entire planet. The humans had not surrendered. They had not fled. They had simply begun fighting back. Send a message to Hegemony Command, Crixval ordered. Request additional forces. This planet will require a full invasion fleet. He stared at the tactical display showing the current situation. Red markers indicated alien positions. Blue markers showed human resistance. The entire planet was covered in blue dot. What kind of species was this? What kind of people could organize a global defense in less than 24 hours? Crixval had never seen anything like it in his 40 years of military service. On the surface, Lieutenant Colonel Murphy finished his evening briefing and looked out at the night sky. The alien ships were still there, dark shapes against the stars, but the humans were still fighting, still holding their ground, still refusing to surrender. Day 1 complete, he reported to his superiors. Enemy has failed to achieve any strategic objectives. Our forces remain combat effective. We are ready for Day 2. The war had begun, and humanity was still standing. 3 months had passed since the invasion began. Crixval stood in what used to be downtown Chicago, looking at the ruins around him. The Zephyrians controlled the major cities now, but victory felt hollow. Every day brought new casualties. Every patrol that ventured into human territory came back smaller than when it left. The assignment to urban pacification. Duties was supposed to be easier than frontline combat. Crixval was learning that nothing about fighting humans was easy. "Commander, we lost another patrol last night," his aide reported. "Patrol 7 Alpha, all 12 soldiers. We found their weapons, but the bodies were gone." Crixval clicked his mandibles in frustration. This was the third patrol lost this week. The humans were like ghosts, striking from nowhere and vanishing without a trace. Deep beneath the city, Major Alex Stone studied the maps spread across his table. The tunnel system was vast, connecting every major building in the downtown area. His people had spent the last 3 months turning it into a fortress. "Maria, what do you see up there?" He spoke into his radio. Detective Maria Santos crouched in a maintenance shaft, watching the alien patrol through a grate. She had been a police officer for 20 years before the invasion. She knew these streets better than anyone alive. 12 bugs moving east on Madison Street, she whispered. "They look nervous. Good. Ben, are your charges ready?" Captain Ben Clark checked his detonator from his position in the subway tunnel below. The combat engineer had rigged every street in the downtown area. The aliens thought they controlled the surface, but the humans controlled what lay beneath it. "Ready when you are, Major." Stone waited until the alien patrol was directly over the prepared charges. "Execute." The street exploded upward, sending concrete and metal flying. The alien soldiers scattered, their formation broken. But this was just the beginning. Sergeant Tony Mitchell and his team emerged from storm drains on both sides of the street. They had practiced this ambush dozens of times. Every movement was planned, every shot calculated. "Fire and move," Mitchell commanded. 30 seconds, then we are gone." The humans fired their weapons with deadly precision, then vanished back into the tunnels before the aliens could respond. By the time reinforcements arrived, the street was empty except for alien bodies and the echo of explosions. Crixval arrived at the scene 20 minutes later. He studied the crater in the street, the scorch marks on the buildings, the places where his soldiers had fallen. The humans had turned his own territory into a trap. "Sir, this is the same pattern we see everywhere," his tactical officer explained. "The humans strike and disappear. We cannot track them. We cannot predict where they will attack next. They are using the underground systems," Crixval realized. "The tunnels, the sewers, the maintenance shafts. They move beneath us like parasites." What disturbed him most was how organized the attacks were. This was not random violence or desperate resistance. This was planned, coordinated warfare conducted by people who understood tactics and strategy. Nurse Jennifer Davis worked in the makeshift hospital during the day, treating wounded resistance fighters. The facility looked like a simple medical clinic, but it was actually the nerve center of the supply network. "We need more antibiotics," she told the supply coordinator, "and ammunition for the teams in Sector 7. At night, she coordinated the supply runs that kept the resistance alive. Food, medicine, weapons, explosives. Everything moved through networks that had grown more sophisticated each day since the invasion. School. Teacher Paul Johnson had turned his classroom into a command center for the Children's Intelligence Network. To the aliens, they looked like scared kids playing games. In reality, they were the most effective reconnaissance force the resistance had. "Miss Johnson, the metal bugs are building something big near the old stadium," 10-year-old Sarah reported. "Lots of machines, lots of soldiers." "Good work, Sarah. Draw me a picture of what you saw." The child's drawing showed detailed information about alien construction patterns, guard positions, and equipment types. Information that would be invaluable for planning the next attack. Colonel Susan Wright received the intelligence reports in her hidden command bunker. She had been fighting wars her entire adult life, but this conflict was different. The enemy was technologically superior, but they fought like they expected easy victory. They had never faced an opponent that refused to quit. The aliens are expanding their fortifications, she told her staff. They are scared. Good. Scared enemies make mistakes. What are your orders, Colonel? Double the patrol activities. Hit them every night. Make them afraid to leave their bases. Make them waste resources on defense instead of offense. Crix Val studied the casualty reports with growing alarm. In 3 months of occupation, his forces had suffered more losses than the hegemony typically experienced in years of conquest. The humans were not just resisting, they were winning. Sir, we have intercepted human communications, his intelligence officer reported. They are coordinating activities across the entire planet. Their resistance networks are in contact with each other. Show me. The display showed a web of communication links connecting resistance cells in every major city on Earth. The humans had created a global command structure that operated entirely outside their official governments. How is this possible? Crixval demanded. Their government surrendered weeks ago. The military did not surrender, sir. They simply went underground. Air Force Colonel Kevin Taylor had been captured 2 weeks ago during a failed supply run. Crixval decided to interrogate him personally, hoping to understand how the humans maintained such effective resistance. Your governments have surrendered, Crixval told the human officer. Your military has been defeated. Why do you continue to fight? Taylor looked at his alien captor with calm eyes. Because you are here, and you should not be. You cannot win. We have superior technology, superior numbers. Your resistance is pointless. Maybe, but we are still here, and you are still dying. The simple statement chilled Crixval more than any threat could have. The human showed no fear, no desperation, just quiet determination to continue fighting regardless of the odds. Dr. Helen Martinez had been captured while treating wounded civilians. During her interrogation, she explained something that horrified Crixval. You think this is unusual? She asked when he questioned her about human resistance tactics. We have been doing this to each other for thousands of years. You are just another enemy. What do you mean? War, occupation, resistance, liberation. We have seen it all before. Many times, the faces change, but the methods stay the same. Crixval accessed human historical records and found conflicts dating back centuries. The humans had fought wars against foreign invaders throughout their history. They had perfected the art of asymmetric warfare through constant practice against their own species. Navy SEAL Commander Rick Barnes was the most disturbing prisoner of all. During interrogation, he seemed almost bored by the questions. You call this an invasion? Barnes asked. This is low-intensity conflict. You want to see real war, look up World War II, or Vietnam, or Afghanistan. We have been fighting people like you for decades. People like us, occupying forces, technologically superior enemies, foreign invaders who thought they could break our will to fight. And what happened to them? Barnes smiled. They learned that occupying our territory is not the same as defeating our people. The reports from other fronts were equally disturbing. Resistance networks were sharing information and tactics across the planet. Successful attacks in one city were being replicated in others within days. Crixval realized that the humans were not just fighting back, they were learning. Every Zephyrian tactic was being studied, countered, and turned against them. The humans adapted faster than his forces could change their strategies. Request immediate reinforcements, he told his communications officer. Full division strength. We need to end this resistance before it spreads further. Sir, command reports that reinforcements are not available. The hegemony is fighting resistance movements on 7 other worlds. 7 other worlds? How is that possible? Unknown, sir. But all resistance movements are using similar tactics to the humans. Crixval stared at the tactical display showing the current situation on Earth. 3 months ago, he had expected easy victory. Now he was fighting a war that seemed to have no end. The humans had turned every city into a battlefield, every building into a fortress, every tunnel into an ambush site. The worst part was that they showed no signs of giving up. If anything, their attacks were becoming more sophisticated, more coordinated, more deadly. They were not just surviving the occupation, they were thriving under it. Major Stone received the latest intelligence reports and smiled grimly. The aliens were requesting more troops, more equipment, more resources. Every day they spent on Earth was a day they could not spend conquering other worlds. Keep up the pressure, he ordered. Make them pay for every street, every building, every tunnel. Make them understand that occupying Earth costs more than they can afford. The resistance was just getting started. 6 months after the invasion began, Crixval found himself assigned to interrogation duties. His superiors hoped he could break the human resistance by understanding their psychology. What he discovered in the interrogation chambers would haunt him for the rest of his life. The first prisoner brought to him was Air Force Colonel Kevin Taylor. The human had been captured 3 weeks ago and showed no signs of breaking under standard interrogation methods. Crixval decided to try a different approach. Tell me about your military training, Crixval said, settling into his chair across from the human officer. Taylor looked up with steady eyes. What do you want to know? How did you know what to do when we arrived? Your response was too fast, too organized. You were prepared for us. Taylor almost smiled. We have been preparing for you our whole lives. We just did not know you would. Look like giant bugs. What do you mean? Science fiction. Movies, books, games. We have been imagining alien invasion for over a century. Every possible scenario has been written about, filmed, or simulated. When you actually showed up, we already knew what to do. Crixval stared at the human in confusion. You prepared for war against enemies that did not exist? We prepared for war against enemies that might exist. It is what we do. The next prisoner was Dr. Helen Martinez, a former disease control researcher who had been organizing medical support for the resistance. Her interrogation revealed something even more disturbing. You study warfare like it is a science, Crixval observed after reviewing her background. Because it is a science, Martinez replied. We have universities that teach military strategy, schools that exist only to train officers for war. We have been studying conflict for thousands of years. But you also heal people. You save lives. How do you reconcile this? Martinez looked at him with the patience of a teacher explaining something to a slow student. We study both. How to kill efficiently and how to keep people alive efficiently. War and medicine go together. Always have. I do not understand. You will. Your people are learning about human medicine right now. Every time you attack us, every time we attack you, we both learn something new about killing and healing. The interrogation that changed everything came when they brought in Navy SEAL Commander Rick Barnes. The human Special Forces officer had been captured during a failed raid on an alien supply depot. Unlike the other prisoners, Barnes seemed almost eager to talk. You want to understand us? Barnes asked. Really understand what you are fighting? Yes, then let me tell you about human history. Let me tell you about what we do to each other when we get angry. Barnes began describing human conflicts with casual precision. World War I, where humans killed millions of their own species using poison gas and machine guns. World War II, where they killed even more using industrial methods and weapons that could destroy entire cities. 70 million dead in 6 years, Barnes said. That was just one war. We have had thousands of wars. Crixval accessed the human historical databases to verify these claims. What he found terrified him more than any weapon could have. The humans had not just fought wars, they had perfected them. The Battle of Stalingrad, where over 2 million humans died fighting for control of a single city. The siege lasted for months, with both sides refusing to surrender despite horrific casualties. The Holocaust, where humans systematically murdered 6 million of their own people using industrial methods. Not in the heat of battle, but as a calculated program of extermination. The Napoleonic Wars, where one human led armies across an entire continent, fighting battles that killed hundreds of thousands at a time. The American Civil War, where Americans killed Americans for 4 years over political differences. This cannot be accurate, Crixval said to Barnes during their next session. These casualty figures are impossible. Check them yourself. We keep detailed records of our wars. We study them. We learn from them. We teach them in our schools. You teach children about war. We teach children about everything. History, science, mathematics, literature. And yes, we teach them about war, because war is part of what we are. Barnes leaned forward in his chair. You know what the scariest part is? Those wars I mentioned? We fought them against ourselves, humans killing humans. And we got very, very good at it. Crixval spent days reviewing human military academies, West Point, Sandhurst, St. Cyr. Institutions that had existed for centuries, dedicated entirely to training officers for warfare. The humans had been studying military strategy longer than his own species had possessed spaceflight. The interrogation of General Patricia Cook revealed the true scope of human military knowledge. The captured officer possessed encyclopedic understanding of conflicts spanning 3,000 years of recorded history. Sun Tzu, Clausewitz, Napoleon, Alexander, Caesar, she recited. We study them all. Every great military leader, every successful strategy, every tactical innovation. We preserve it, we analyze it, we improve upon it. Why? Because knowledge is power. Because the side that knows more wins. Because we never want to be unprepared for the next war. The next war? Cook looked at him with something that might have been pity. There's always a next war, always another enemy, always another conflict. Peace is just the time between wars when we prepare for the next one. Crixval discovered that humans had war colleges, military universities, strategic research institutes. They employed thousands of people whose only job was to study warfare and develop new ways to fight. They had turned killing into an academic discipline. The psychological profiles were the most disturbing part. The humans did not just fight wars, they enjoyed them. Their entertainment was filled with stories about conflict. Their heroes were warriors. Their greatest leaders were often military commanders. You celebrate violence, Crixval said to Barnes during their final session. We celebrate victory, Barnes corrected. Violence is just a tool. We use whatever tools work. But you also create art, music, literature. You build beautiful things. You help each other. How can you be both cruel and kind? Barnes was quiet for a long moment. Because we understand that sometimes you have to be cruel to be kind. Sometimes you have to fight to protect what you love. Sometimes you have to kill to save lives. I still do not understand. You will. When your people finally leave our planet, when they retreat back to whatever hole they crawled out of, then you will understand. We are not fighting you because we hate you. We are fighting you because you are here, and we do not want you here. The final piece of the puzzle came when Crixval accessed human military doctrine. The official strategies and tactics used by their armed forces. What he found was a systematic approach to warfare that covered every possible scenario. Asymmetric warfare, urban combat, guerrilla tactics, psychological operations, electronic warfare, chemical warfare, biological warfare, nuclear warfare. The humans had developed specific strategies for every type of conflict imaginable. They had manuals for fighting in deserts, jungles, mountains, cities, and space. They had protocols for dealing with superior technology, larger numbers, and unknown enemies. They had contingency plans for scenarios that had never occurred. They were ready for us, Crixval realized. Not specifically for us, but for anything that might come. They prepare for threats that do not exist yet. The most chilling discovery was that the humans were still learning. Every battle, every skirmish, every encounter with Zephyrian forces was being analyzed and incorporated into their tactical knowledge. They were treating the invasion as a training exercise. Crixval compiled his findings into a report that he knew would be dismissed by his superiors. The humans were not just another primitive species to be conquered. They were a military organism that had spent millennia perfecting the art of warfare. Every human institution, from their governments to their schools to their entertainment, was built around the concept of conflict. They did not just fight wars, they lived for them. Peace was not their natural state. It was an artificial condition they maintained through constant preparation for the next war. The hegemony had made the greatest mistake in its history. They had attacked a species that was better at warfare than they were. A species that had been preparing for this moment for centuries without knowing it. As Crixval finished his report, he realized that the humans were not the victims in this conflict. They were the predators, and the Zephyrians had just become their prey. The horror behind the human war front was not their savagery or their weapons. It was their competence. Their absolute, terrifying competence at the business of war. They had turned killing into a science, and they were very good scientists. 1 year after the invasion began, Crixval sat in his new office at Hegemony Intelligence Command. His promotion to intelligence analyst had come with access to classified information that made his previous discoveries seem like minor concerns. What he learned in those secure files would forever change how he viewed the war on Earth. The first shocking revelation came from intercepted human communications. The resistance was not just fighting back. They were studying every aspect of Zephyrian technology and tactics. General Chris Murphy, younger brother of Lieutenant Colonel Jake Murphy, was coordinating a global intelligence operation that spanned the entire planet. Analysis complete on captured plasma rifle. One intercepted message read, "Reverse engineering successful. Production begins next week." Crixval stared at the communication in disbelief. The humans were manufacturing copies of Zephyrian weapons. Not crude imitations, but functional replicas that worked as well as the originals. Admiral Linda Thompson, commander of the Human Naval Resistance, was sending encrypted messages to underground laboratories around the world. Scientists like Dr. Michael Green and Dr. Janet Parker were working in hidden facilities, taking apart alien technology piece by piece. They are learning from us, Crixval realized. Every weapon we lose, every vehicle they capture, every piece of equipment they steal, they study it and make copies. But that was not the worst part. The humans were not just copying Zephyrian technology, they were improving it. The intercepted technical reports showed modifications that made alien weapons more efficient, more reliable, more deadly. Colonel William Davis led a team of cryptographers who had accomplished the impossible. They had broken the Zephyrian communication codes. Every military transmission, every strategic order, every tactical plan was being read by human intelligence officers. "Sir, you need to see this," his aide said, bringing Crixval another intercepted message. "It is from the human resistance leadership." The message was addressed to something called Liberation Command and contained detailed information about Zephyrian fleet movements, supply lines, and strategic weaknesses, but it was not meant for human forces on Earth. "They are sending intelligence to other worlds," Crixval whispered. They are helping other species fight back against the hegemony. Further investigation revealed the scope of the human operation. Using captured Zephyrian communication equipment, they had made contact with resistance movements on 17 different occupied worlds. They were sharing tactical knowledge, strategic advice, and technical information with every species fighting. Against the hegemony, the humans had turned the invasion into an intelligence-gathering operation. Every day of occupation provided them with more data about Zephyrian capabilities, more insight into hegemony weaknesses, more knowledge about galactic politics and military structure. General Patricia Henderson commanded the overall human resistance. From a hidden bunker deep underground, her communications with other world leaders revealed a plan that terrified Crixval more than any weapon could have. Phase 1 complete. One message read: Earth resistance stable. Beginning Phase 2 operations. Phase 2 was the unthinkable. The humans were not content to simply drive the Zephyrians off their planet. They were preparing to take the war to other worlds. Captain Steve Anderson led a team of former NASA engineers working with Dr. Carol White and her research staff. Using captured alien technology, they had solved the mystery of faster-than-light travel. The humans were building their own starships. First prototype launches next month, Anderson reported to his superiors. Destination: Kepler 442b, estimated. Arrival: 6 months. Crixval checked the hegemony databases. Kepler 442b was an occupied world where local resistance had been struggling against Zephyrian forces for 3 years. The humans were planning to provide direct military support to alien resistance movements. The intelligence reports painted a picture of systematic preparation for interstellar warfare. The humans had established manufacturing facilities on their moon, asteroid mining operations throughout their solar system, and orbital weapons platforms that could threaten any approaching fleet. They are not defending, Crixval realized. They are preparing to attack. The human military doctrine had evolved during the occupation. They were no longer fighting a defensive war against invasion. They were fighting the opening campaign of an offensive war against the hegemony itself. Colonel Robert Shun coordinated the space-based operations from a hidden lunar base. His teams had been studying captured Zephyrian star charts, identifying key hegemony worlds, analyzing fleet deployments, and planning strike operations that would cripple alien supply lines. Target priority list updated, Chun reported. Primary objectives: hegemony fuel depots, communication relays, and military academies. The humans intended to strike at the heart of Zephyrian civilization, not just to defend Earth, but to destroy the hegemony's ability to wage war against anyone. Major Carol Anderson, Steve's sister, led the Psychological Warfare Division. Her teams were broadcasting human military doctrine to every occupied world in the galaxy. They were teaching other species how to fight back, how to organize resistance, how to turn occupation into liberation. Broadcast schedule complete, her reports showed. All known resistance frequencies covered. Estimated audience: 2 billion beings across 47 worlds. The humans were spreading like a virus through the galaxy, not through conquest, but through knowledge. Every species that learned human tactics became more effective at fighting the hegemony. Every world that adopted human strategies became harder to control. Intelligence: Officer Nancy Williams had been tracking hegemony fleet movements for months. Her analysis revealed something that shocked even Crixval. The hegemony was losing the war. 17 worlds in active revolt, her report stated, all using human tactical doctrine. Hegemony forces spread too thin to maintain control. Multiple fleet withdrawals confirmed. The humans had accomplished something no other species had managed in over 1,000 years of hegemony expansion. They had stopped the conquest machine and forced it into retreat, but they were not finished. General Henderson's final phase involved something that Crixval could barely comprehend. The humans were planning to liberate every occupied world in the galaxy, starting with the ones closest to Earth, and working their way toward the hegemony home worlds. Liberation Fleet Alpha launches in 18 months. The operational plans showed: target, Wolf 359 system. Objective, complete elimination of hegemony presence. The humans had turned a defensive war into an offensive campaign. They were not content to simply survive the invasion. They intended to destroy the hegemony entirely and free every enslaved species in the galaxy. Crixval completed his final report with shaking hands. The document contained his recommendation for immediate withdrawal from Earth and the establishment of a quarantine zone around the entire human solar system. Continued occupation is impossible, he wrote. Human resistance has evolved into an existential threat to hegemony survival. Recommend immediate cessation of all hostile activities and consideration of peace negotiations. The report was classified as catastrophic intelligence failure and buried in the hegemony archives. Crixval was reassigned to a remote monitoring station on the edge of civilized space, but the damage was already done. Human transmissions were reaching every corner of the galaxy. Species that had been enslaved for generations were learning to fight back. Worlds that had been conquered decades ago were rising in revolt. 5 years later, Crixval watched from his observation post as hegemony fleets retreated from system after system. The humans had kept their promise. They were liberating the galaxy. One world at a time. Earth had become the center of an interstellar liberation movement. Humans were not just free, they were leading a galactic revolution against tyranny. They had taken their talent for warfare and turned it into a force for liberation. The last entry in Crixval's personal log reflected on the greatest mistake in hegemony history. We came to conquer a primitive world and instead awaken something that threatens the stability of the entire galaxy. The humans were not just prepared for war. They were prepared to win it. The hegemony had learned too late that humanity was not a species to be conquered. They were a species that conquered. And now they were coming for everyone who had ever enslaved another people. The horror behind the human warfront had been revealed. It was not their cruelty or their violence. It was their competence, their determination, and their absolute refusal to accept defeat. Humanity had been preparing for galactic war for centuries. They just had not known it yet. Now they did.